Hello everybody, welcome to a Sunday recovery and regeneration workout recorded live at Rex's gym. Today we're going to do a bit of soft tissue work, which is what we call foam rolling, and some work with the ball, and then we're going to do some stretching. If you don't have access to either a foam roller or a ball, maybe both, I put down in the description below when we're going into our stretching, so you can just do that part. You can definitely do this with just a roller or just a ball. I've got access to both, so I'm going to use both. We're going to start with some work on the bottom of the feet. So put the ball on the ground. You can do this in a standing position, or you can do this half kneeling like I am. And we're just going to explore the bottom of the foot a little bit. Put a little bit of pressure on there. When you do find a spot that's tight, what I want you to do is just try to grab the ball with your foot and then extend again. So move the toes, you can move the foot itself around a little bit. What we're trying to do is just give a little bit of a flossing action of those muscles and tendons underneath your foot. They cop a flogging throughout the day, so may as well show them a little bit of love. And there might be a lot of tight spots here, or there might only be one, there might be none. As usual, this is very personal. If you need more time, the bottom of the feet, just try to work it in your weekly schedule. Now, another thing we can do is, what we've talked about before, is the contrast method, which means you're going to flex the muscles in the bottom of the foot as hard as you can for 4 or 5 seconds, and then slowly release. The idea is that when you release, you can feel the muscles relaxing a little bit more than they were at the start, and really give that feedback of that ball sinking in deeper into the structures. Do that one more time. And relax. Let's move to the other side. Same idea, so we're just gonna put a little bit of weight on the ball. If it's very sore, very painful, put more weight on this leg. You can do this standing, as I said. And we're just gonna roll around and explore. Make sure you explore that inner arch as well. And if you do find a tight spot, do a bit of the grabbing and extending, a bit of flossing work. And then if you really find a spot that has a lot of trouble letting go, you can do the flex and relax. Now you can do that contrast method as many times as you want. I believe that if something hasn't really let go after a few minutes, it's not going to. We went over this last week, but if you feel the need to roll something for 15 minutes, you're beyond rolling. You need professional help. All right, so having done the feet, we're going into the calves next. I'll use the ball for this one because we can. Now I want to explore everywhere from the Achilles all the way up to the top of the calf. I'm going to just start with rolling around a bit through that bottom portion and see if there's any spots there that make your eyebrows knot together. There a little bit. If you find that, you can move the ankle around, just trying to floss those structures again. And get a little bit of movement through it. And then, if that hasn't really done the trick, you can do the flex and relax. Flex and relax. Nice. Move up to the middle quadrant. Again, I'll take about a minute on the bottom part, the middle part, and the top part of the calf. Explore that inside as well. That's why part of the reason why I like to use a ball every now and then. You can just pinpoint where you're working a little bit more. And if you find a bit of a tight spot, just roll that ankle around and see if you can just give a little bit more movement through those structures. And if you want, you can do that contrast method. So really flex the muscle into the ball or the roller, what you're using, and relax. You can do it once. I wouldn't do it more than, let's call an arbitrary number, and let's say 5. If after 5 contract and relaxes, it hasn't relaxed yet, it's not going to today, move on, try again. Either later today, tomorrow. For me, this is just part of a little bit of maintenance on the body. Everybody should be able to perform the bare bones of maintenance. Like, you're not going to call an electrician to change the light bulb. No need to pay a professional to do this sort of stuff on your body if you don't have to. If you've gotten to the point that maybe you've neglected this, or something has happened to really throw you out of whack, yes, definitely go see a physio, massage therapist, that sort of stuff. And another great reason to see a massage therapist is if you like getting massages, then it's absolutely fine. Now, also want you to just spend a little bit of time right with that ball in the back of the knee. Still move around that ankle. And then do that contract, relax. In the back of the knee is where a lot of the tendons come together, or they overlap, I should say. The tendons from the hamstring attach on the lower leg, the tendons of the lower leg attach on the upper leg. So there's a busy intersection on the back of that knee. Let's go to the other side, starting with the lower third. Just try and determine, okay, where do you feel it, if you do. Now, we went over this last week, but the number one thing I want you to focus on is try to relax the muscle that you are rolling. If you put a lot of pressure in there, like if I would put both feet together and lift my hips up, I can do it, I can roll, but the pressure is so much that I'm automatically tensing that muscle to protect it. So over the years, I found that minimum amount of pressure works best. The pressure is more of a feedback. The pressure itself doesn't do anything. Your muscle is supposed to relax. So if you put a ton of pressure on there, or use like that spiky roller on a structure that's pretty tight and knotted up, I'm moving to the middle part, by the way, you're not going to be able to relax, which means there's really no benefit to what you're doing. This has taken me years to learn, because I love the spiky roller. I used to just roll out on the barbell because it's hard, absolutely no give. And you know, if you were bruised after a good session of rolling, then oh man, you did a good job. Well, if you bruise a relaxed muscle, you've done a hell of a job. And this is supposed to make your body feel better, not bettered. So explore that whole muscle, the whole wrap around, and if you do find a spot that you go, whoo, spicy, you can do that flex and relax. Flex and relax. Now, of course, I'm taking my time for this. Going to the top part. If you feel that, oh, well, my calves are fine, every week, if you spend just 1 minute on rolling them to just make sure that they are fine, You're doing great. Fantastic. If you're doing this and for the first time in your life you realize that your calves have been doing a lot of work for you and they need a little bit of upkeep, then maybe you do need to stay on that calf for 5 minutes or so. The idea is over time you need less work because it's easier for that muscle to relax. And then you can start tailoring a little bit for you if you, for instance, have done a big mountain walk and your calves are tight the next day. You're like, okay, I'll spend a little bit more time on the calf. Let's get that ball in the back of the knee, do our flossing maneuvers, see how that all feels. And if that is a little bit sore, you can do that. Contract and relax. Contract and relax. All right, we're gonna move into our quads next, and I will be using my roller for that. So you can do the quads one at a time, which means put all the pressure in one quad and then do the other side. But today we'll just do them at the same time. If you feel you need a little bit more individuality on your quads, then feel free to do that. So both quads on the roller, relax your legs, and then just take a few long strokes from knee to hip. This is just your exploration of the area, and just realize, find out where are you tight, if anywhere. Do that as well with the heels together and the toes apart, so you go more to the inside of the quad. The quad sits through the whole front of the leg, so it kind of wraps around the front. With the heels together, toes apart, pay extra attention to that part just above the knee, that teardroppy muscle. And then do a few where your toes are together and your heels are apart. So you get a little bit more in the outside of the quad. Now for me, this area here is definitely the tightest. So I'm going to start with some scrubbing. So just some side to side. Main focus is just to relax the muscle into the roller. Then I'm going to go for some flex and extend. So that flossing that we've talked about. Try to come to a full relaxation every time my legs are long. Trying to allow that roller to sink in deeper and deeper. And then I'm going to do the contrast method. So tight, 3, 2, 1, and ease into it. And again, 3, 2, 1, and ease into it. And I'll do one more. And ease into it. Good. So basically what I've done, so taken the tightest part of my quads, which is right around here, and I've just focused on that part a little bit. Instead of maybe doing contract relax on every single muscle up and down the chain, or part of the muscle up and down the chain, because it's all the same. I just, okay, this is where I feel it the most, this is what I'm gonna do. Because this should be kind of like a daily maintenance, or at least a few times a week. So I don't have to spend 20 minutes on each muscle. Next up, we're going into the lats. Now lats we have to do one at a time. I want you to start by putting that roller right in the armpit. And we're gonna just explore a little bit, rolling forward and back, and doing a few rolls up and down. How far down? I want you to go to about the lower ribs. No lower than that. The lats do go lower than that, but we're just exploring that top part. So just through there, just exploring, rolling a little further back, rolling a little further forward, and try to find out right around there is where I'm tightest. So we're going to do some scrubbing, trying to relax. We're going to do some flossing, moving that arm, still trying to relax. And from there, we're going to do our contrast flex. And actually, that did the trick. So I'll find another spot and do the same thing, a bit of scrubbing, bit of flossing, and then the contract and relax. Nice. Now you might need longer, or you might need a few contrasts to get that release, and that's fine. Take the time you need. I'll move over to the other side. Now, a question I got the other day was, I'm very sore from the squats. I think the jump squats I made you guys do. So I'm just gonna do half hour on the roller. I'm a fan of the roller, obviously, but half hour because you're sore from a workout, not the best way to spend your time. If you do have soreness and you want to get rid of it, the absolute best thing to do is movement. So if your legs are very sore, go for a walk and then perform a couple of sets of just body weight squats. Just go through that full range of motion again that made you sore and repeat it at a lower level. Blood flow is tons better to reduce muscle soreness than hopping on the roller. Because what you want to do is want to increase that blood flow to your muscle, get rid of all the waste products that are in the muscle from the workout the last day. And rolling does that to an extent, but it's much more efficient than just to do a lighter form of the range of motion. So let's say yesterday we did push-ups. Maybe your chest is super sore. You are much better off doing some wall push-ups, so where you're in a very upright angle on the kitchen counter and go through that range of motion for some sets of 10. It's gonna do much more to reduce soreness than rolling the chest for 30 minutes. All right. The last bit we're going to do on the roller before we go into our stretches is just some extensions over the roller. So I'm going to put the roller underneath my lower back, right opposite the nipple line, hands behind the head, and just going to hang over it. Try to look at the opposite wall. Full breath in. One more breath. All right. Now, quickly check in with yourself. How is the body feeling? Did that make a difference? Anything feeling less tight, less sore, more tight, more sore? So take that time to see, how is this working for you? We're going into some stretching. The first stretch we're going to do, we've already done this week, so that's easy. It's the toe sit. Now, quick recap. You're going to tuck your toes under, and then you're going to ease your hips back onto your heels and just allow those toes to be folded under a little bit. You want to get to the point where all the little piggies are touching the ground, but for some of you it might take a while for that little toe to actually touch. Now, the length of this is the most personal of all the stretches, because I want you to kind of Do this until you really feel like, oh my God, this is getting uncomfortable, and then I want you to ease out of it. If it doesn't feel uncomfortable at all, it just means you don't really have to do this stretch. So we won't make this too long, and we're going to ease out of it. But you should be able to sit with, well, ideally, the ball of the foot on the ground with those toes completely folded over. If you can't quite get there yet, this means you should probably be doing this stretch more regularly. Next up, we're going to go for one of those calf stretches. Now, the one we're going to do will require you one knee on the ground, one foot on the ground. Keep the heel planted, and we're going to move that knee over the little toe. So we're not going inside and allowing that arch to collapse. We're going to go towards the little toe. Now there is a difference between stretching your calves with your knee straightened and stretching them with your knee bent like we are now. Different structures of the calf, so we need to explore both of them. And during every stretch, just try to keep that full breath going in and out into your stomach. Let's switch sides. So front on view this time, so you can see that I'm not allowing that knee to come in, not towards the big toe, but we're going out towards the little toe. And again, try to relax as much as you can. I am putting some weight on this knee just to allow it to travel a little bit further. Now the stretch here should be lower in the calf compared to the one we're going to do in a minute, which is a straight knee calf stretch, which is going to be more throughout that meaty part of the calf. Now this can often be a little bit of a tricky one to get the stretch in, because if that muscle is used to just being tight, it's going to have a hard time letting go enough to be stretched. So sometimes you might have to hold this for a little while before you see the stretch. Again, anywhere up to, for this small muscle I say, up to 2 minutes at the very most, and then ease out of it, unless you have a very particular reason to do that stretch. For instance, if you're a competitive weightlifter and you have to have access to that deep squat position while you're catching your weights, yeah, you need that to be nice and loose. But for most of us, if we just spend a little bit of time, about a minute to maximum 2 minutes, to create that range of motion, that should be fine. And over time, through repetition of the stretch, we're going to get access to that range of motion. Instead of trying to do 10 minutes once a week, it's much better to do 1 to 2 minutes every day, every other day. For the top part of the calf, we're going to do the downward dog. So I want you in a pike push-up position, legs nice and straight. You're going to try to push your heels into the ground. Keep those deep breaths going. And ease out of it. So that stretch should have been a little bit higher than the bended knee calf stretch that we did before. Now again, anywhere up to 2 minutes is fine. This can be a little bit tricky on the shoulders to hold that pike position, so we did it a little bit shorter today. But if you feel you need more of that, do it again tomorrow. Hip flexor stretch. Now what we're after is that belt line to be nice and level. So lift up the belt buckle, stay tall or even lean back a little bit, and then squeeze your butt and grab the floor with the front foot to pull your hips forward. That should give you a nice stretch throughout that front. Now, the classic hip flexor stretch, if you're going to do any stretch, would recommend for most people to do this one. Keeping that hip closed off like this left one is sitting down. We need to restore that length throughout the front, just so that when you're walking, the movement doesn't go into your lower back. Because if that pelvis is locked up and you won't allow that full extension, every step you take, you're going to extend into your lower back. Every time you get to the top of a squat or a deadlift or a kettlebell swing or whatever it is, you're going to engage your lower back. And engaging the lower back is fine. They are muscles. They should be working and they should have the ability to work. But my old coach likened it to a paperclip. You can bend a paperclip completely straight and get it back in position and you're fine. And if you do it 1,000 times, that paperclip is going to break. Now we know that most adults, up to 80%, will deal with lower back problems. So we are very, very likely to struggle with that. So if you have only 2 minutes a day to stretch, 1 minute one side, 1 minute the other side. And this, of course, would be a fairly comfortable position to hold for longer, but it's much more important to actively pull into that stretch. You want to feel the stretch, not feel pain. Yeah. There's a difference between training your flexibility, and really trying to get that range of motion the way that some athletes do, like gymnasts. It's a very, very different beast than just trying to stretch and regain some of the function of your joints and muscles. All right, now sticking with that, with the hip, we're going to go into our pigeon, which means we're going to put this leg side of the lower leg flat on the ground. Straighten that back leg out as much as you can. I want that front knee to be bent about 90 degrees. And try to get that front hip, which is sitting right here for me, into the ground. So this is fairly tight for me. I have trouble with that. So the option that we have is to take our roller and put it under that knee. So that way I can sit more upright, that hip is pointing straight down. It's really up to you which one you choose. This one definitely does more for me. If I do this stretch and then I retest my hip mobility, this stretch gives me more mobility. Check with yourself, are you still breathing into your stomach? And let's switch to the other side. As always, be aware of any sort of right-left difference that you might feel. If you notice that your left has a lot more movement than your right, there might be a good reason for that, but it is something we are trying to eliminate as much as possible. off the yoke. Next up, we are in our prayer stretch. Move back to the back of the mat. Put our arms nice and long on the ground. Try to push the chest into the ground. Hands, the closer they are, the more of a stretch on the lats we will get. So very dependent on how flexible you are. The idea is to reach forward. And allow the body to sink in. Now if you're very tight throughout your shoulders and lats, you might find yourself out here a little bit more, which is fine. And if you are very flexible, you might have your hands touching, which is also fine. Good work. Next up, we have a chest stretch. Now you can do this one against the wall. I don't really have a wall here that I can use, so we're doing the floor version today. Again, on the knees, I'm gonna have one hand on the ground. The arm's gonna stay off the ground. The other side, the arm is gonna go flat on the ground. So from wrist to shoulder, I want that arm to be on the ground. Shoulder is away from the ear. And you're gonna push yourself up with the opposite hand. So we create that rotation over the shoulder. So I'm pushing through my right to open up. Now stretch anywhere through the forearm, bicep, front of the shoulder, or chest is fine. It just depends on where you are tight. And let's switch to the other side. So you use that free arm, or that left arm in my case, to push myself into that rotation, keeping my left shoulder down, away from the ear. And I can feel that stretch throughout my bicep and my chest. Alright guys, last but not least, we're going to do a little bit of just stomach breathing, and we're going to do that in the version what we call croc breathing, which means we're going to breathe like a crocodile. I want you lying flat on your stomach, breathe into the core. Now the reason we're on our stomach is because it'll allow us to breathe into the lower back a little bit. That stomach is on the ground so it can't expend as much, so we should be able to get more air into the side and lower back. We want 360 degrees of breathing, so we don't just want to breathe here, want to breathe here and here as well. So I want you to lie flat on the ground, relax your arms, relax your neck. You can have your head to one side if you want, and then try to feel that you're filling this part up with air. And guys, that is you done. So, plenty of stretching for today. Should feel pretty loosey-goosey. If you want to revisit any of those stretches throughout the week because you found them very challenging or you found that you really need them, then it is applauded for you to do so. We always finish the workout off with some stretching, so very easy to plunk that stretch in with the rest of them, do it a little bit more regularly, and then see to improve over time. Now, if nobody has told you today yet, you are an absolute legend. Well done for getting all the way to the end. 36 minutes of stretching and rolling. Good job of taking good care of your body. And I'll see you tomorrow for another start of a week training.